Hi everyone, Dr. Victoria Skirbo here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. This is my part 2, Astrology and Kabbalah of July 2019, and I'm going to talk about the eclipses. And my challenge is rarely an intellectual one, but it is a technical one. And so I am going to try my best to actually show you the charts and discuss them as best I can. At some point, I will figure all this technical stuff out, but I need a little bit of a tutor, so if you know any teenagers who can help me. All right, so we have just a couple of words about the eclipses first. And I've said some of this already in my other video and also in a couple of the other videos I've been doing, the readings and such. So, eclipses are times when the sun and the moon and the earth line up in such a way that in the case of a solar eclipse, the moon obscures the light of the sun, and in the case of a lunar eclipse, the shadow of the earth obscures the moon, the light of the sun as it reflects on the moon. And eclipses are always 6 months apart. We have 2 seasons. Eclipses can only happen at the nodes of the moon. And the nodes of the moon is this place in space. It is not an actual planet or planetary body, but a point in space where the apparent direction of the apparent path of the sun intersects with the path of the moon and around the earth. And so we have the ecliptic, and then we have the moon, and when the moon goes above the ecliptic, it occurs at the north node of the moon, and then when it comes back down around and goes down, it's the south node of the moon. Now, the nodes travel in a retrograde fashion. So a node of the moon would start, if you're looking at the node of the moon and the degree of the node of the moon, it starts at 30 and ends at 1, okay, or 0. So back in November 6th, the nodes of the moon changed signs. They went from 0 degrees of North Node Leo, South Node Aquarius, into 30 degrees of North Node Cancer, South Node Capricorn. That's the technical part. So the eclipses occur 6 months apart because the nodes of the moon are exactly opposite each other by sign and degree and house in your chart. And so we have the eclipses at one of the nodes of the moon, and then 6 months later, the other node of the moon. Now we have had, this is our second eclipse season of 2019. We had two eclipses in January. We had a new moon solar eclipse in Capricorn, and we had a full moon lunar eclipse in Leo. It was right at the end of Leo. I think it was 1 degree or half a degree of Leo. That particular full moon lunar eclipse was actually part of the previous nodal cycle that occurred, I believe it was from May of 2017 until November of 2018. When that nodal cycle began, that was right at the beginning when James Comey was fired, interestingly enough. So, and then ended at the election, at the midterm election, when the House became overwhelmingly Democratic. So now we have it in Cancer and Capricorn. The north node of the moon is our direction forward. It's the evolutionary edge. South node of the moon is the area that we need to let go. Now, with the South Node in Capricorn, we're letting go of structures that no longer serve us. And that's hard enough, but at the South Node of the Moon, we have Saturn and Pluto. And Saturn and Pluto has been hanging around the South Node of the Moon pretty much the whole time the South Node has been in Capricorn. It was especially potent at the beginning of the year and has continued to be so, getting closer and closer. Saturn actually makes 3 conjunctions to the South Node of the Moon through 2019. I believe the first one might have been in January, but the second one, and I'm sorry I don't have the dates at the tip of my tongue. The second one is occurring on July 4th, and that is the birthday of the United States of America. So that is significant. The eclipse that's happening on the 2nd of July is actually on the sun of the United States. So if you have a birthday on the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, your sun is being eclipsed in this eclipse season. Now, the eclipse season we had in January was a South Node eclipse. So it was about letting go. And since then, we have had to let go of many structures of our reality. Hasn't reality seemed like it's ever shifting, and the things you could depend on are no longer there? And so we are moving into an unknown future, and that unknown future can be confusing and very emotional, because first of all, we're dealing with the nodes of the moon, which is how we react and respond to life. The moon is. The South Node is about the past and our past lives. The North Node is about how we're being required to react and respond to life. How best do we do that in order to evolve? And with the sun, with the North Node in Cancer, we're being asked to feel. So now we have the second eclipse season, and it's in July, and it's a North Node eclipse season. So this is about moving into the unknown future. Heart first, feelings first, emotions first. That's why everybody is so emotional. And at the same time, the past or the structures that need to be released are holding on as tight as they can. But they will be released. Evolution moves forward. We are not going to go backwards. How willing we are to let go of the old ways, power over patriarchal structures. Well, it's not that they're not going to go anywhere. They're going in bye-byes. The question is, how much do we want to suffer? So if we prefer not to suffer, we would let go and move in that direction of our hearts. And I'm a sensitive and emotional person. Always have been. It's in my chart. Can't help it. And even for me, sometimes exploring emotions can be challenging. For those of us who are not necessarily comfortable at all with the feelings, because many people have feelings of rage, people have feelings of hurt. Even the President of the United States, he is actually acting out of his wound, out of his deep emotional wounds that he has. Now, that doesn't give him a bye, because so did Hitler, and so do many of these people who are disconnected from their own heart and their own feeling, or being able to see anybody else's feeling or have any empathy, because frankly it's too painful and they just don't want to go there. And so if you're willing to go there, you will heal, and if you're willing to go there, you will go with the flow of evolution. For those who do not wish to evolve, they will go by the way of the dinosaur. Okay, so let's look at the first solar eclipse. This is on the 2nd of January. Now, I did this chart for Washington, D.C. You could do the chart and have an Aries ascendant, like a natural chart. That's a great way to look at an eclipse chart. It's more pure as far as the energy of the eclipse. When you put a place, then you can see how the energy of the eclipse is affecting that place. And so this is the eclipse chart, and I have it written all over the place. This was from my talk the other night. So here in yellow, we have the eclipse, and the eclipse is happening at 10 degrees of Cancer, 37 minutes. Or if you're looking at the Sabian symbol for this, that's 11 degrees of Cancer. And this is opposite of, and here's the north node right here. This thing here is Vulcan, which I don't actually use, but I don't know how to take off of my my computer. Although I find it very interesting because there's always unique things about Vulcan, but I just don't understand it yet. If anybody has suggestions, please let me know where I can get some information on that. But here we have the north node of the moon. And of course, in order to have an eclipse, the new moon has to be conjunct the one of the nodes, and in this case the north node, because we're in a north node eclipse. And then opposite that we have the south node, and the south node is very, very in a close conjunction to Saturn and to Pluto, and that's what I've been talking about, how these two planets have been on the south node all year. Now Saturn is the archetype of the Grim Reaper, okay, time, whose time is done, and then Pluto is the sign, is the archetype of death and rebirth. And so it's time to let go of the old and the death of the old in preparation for a rebirth. So we have a north node eclipse here. Now, a couple of other things that are happening in this chart is that we have a grand fire trine. You can see that's the orange that I've highlighted. The grand fire trine is actually connected to the planet Mars, which has just moved into Leo, Mercury, which has just moved into Leo, and the asteroid Juno. Juno is the asteroid of relationship. They're all in Leo. Leo is a very heart-centered energy. In fact, this Mars is activating that lunar eclipse from the beginning of the year, because it happened right around that degree. Juno, interestingly enough, also is about taking care of those people who can't take care of themselves, the young, the sick, and the elderly. Okay, and so it is right up here. Okay, and this is significant on the chart of the United States, which we'll talk about. And it is trine Chiron in Aries, and it's trine Ceres in Sagittarius. Chiron is our wound of identity, the wound of the toxic masculine, the wound of our ability to express our masculine energy, whether you're a man or a female, in a positive and healing way. And then Ceres is Mother Nature, and she is in Sagittarius, which rules the wild places. So this is Mother Nature at her wildest. And so we have this grand fire trine, and grand fire trines are hot, they're creative, but they can cause conflagrations, which are big fires. So that's something we need to watch out for. So if you're in an area where there is risk for fire, you sort of keep your eyes open and keep your ears open and stay informed with this stuff. Okay. The sun in this chart, the new moon, is square Pallas Athena, another asteroid, another female asteroid here. Pallas Athena was the goddess who was closest to the mortals. She helped the mortals. She was the goddess of government and the way mortals, and sort of the goddess of civilization, sort of imbuing them with wisdom and strategy and how to build a civilization, right? So she is square the sun. She is square the nodal axis here, okay? And Pallas Athena in Libra especially is social justice, especially around issues of women, okay? And Cancer children. All right, let's see if there's anything else I want to mention here. At the moment, that's all I want to mention. So these are some of the issues. Now, new moons, solar eclipses, is about new beginnings. It's about moving into the unknown future. And so we're being required to do just that. Now, what is very interesting is how this eclipse is affecting the chart of the United States of America. And I want to do that next. So, the center wheel is the United States chart. It's the Sibley chart for those astrologers out there. We have a Sagittarius ascendant, a Gemini descendant. And we can see here that in this chart, the sun of the United States at 13 degrees, looks like, is it 12 minutes? I can't see it backwards. 19 minutes. So 14 degrees of Cancer, okay? We have a conjunction in the chart of the United States with Jupiter. Jupiter is expansion, but Jupiter, and also Jupiter is foreigners. And the United States is a country of foreigners, and it's in Cancer, so it's foreigners finding a home. The midpoint of these two planets, Jupiter and Cancer, is actually conjunct almost exactly the new moon solar eclipse. And so it's not just about the identity of the United States, but it's also about the philosophy and the spiritual backbone of the United States. And it happens in the 7th house. And the 7th house deals with our relationships to both people we get along with and to open enemies. Okay? So with the new moon solar eclipse on the sun of the United States, we are being asked to redefine who we are. Okay? So that's happening. The trine that I talked about, part of the trine that I talked about, the Leo part of that grand trine, is actually conjunct the north node of the United States. The north node of the United States is at 6 degrees 35 minutes, and we have Mars, Mercury, and Juno there, Juno being the closest, how we treat the least of us. Okay? The north node of the moon is our direction forward. How do we move forward? It's like a new beginning, and then we say, well, that's just fine. How are we going to do that? You look to the node. Okay? Compassion, open-hearted, generosity. Actions and words on the same page. Okay? Right there. The other interesting thing is that Pallas, because I talked about Pallas, right? She's square the sun and the moon, she's square the nodes of the moon, the transiting nodes of the moon, is actually conjunct Saturn. So social justice on the Saturn of the United States. The Saturn of the United States is in the 10th house. It's being held, it's the rule of law. It's also what's being held responsible. In a mundane chart, which the United States chart is, the sun is symbolic of the leader. The leader is being eclipsed. Not only that, the government is being tested. Social justice, Saturn, up there in the 10th house. Okay? And then the last thing I want to bring out is that the planet Uranus right now on the eclipse is at 5 degrees 57 minutes of Taurus. It's actually conjunct Vesta. What do we devote ourselves to? Vesta is sextile the sun moon in Taurus. Okay. That makes Uranus square the nodes of the United States chart. And this is an opportunity for us to change, to move into a more progressive direction. That being said, when you have a planet square the nodes, there can be a flip-flopping back and forth. And so you don't fully experience or move in the direction that destiny is calling. How do you do that? You find the resolution node. And in the case of this configuration, the resolution node for this is the south node in the 2nd house in Aquarius. What does that mean? It means that we, in order to figure out who we are and what we value, Taurus, and what we're going to devote ourselves to, Vesta, we have to go back to the past and see how we have traumatized Aquarius. Second house, the land, the people who were on the land, and the people who worked the land. And that means we have to own up to our genocide of the Native Americans and how we stole their lands, and then how we stole Africans from their lands and had them work our lands so that the white man, because back then it was the white man, and to a certain extent it still is, made money. Okay, second house, south node. Oops. Second house, south node. That's the way forward. We have to recognize that. Does anybody not understand why reparations is such an issue right now? Why we need to look at it? It's part of our healing journey. It's not just going to take the election of a black man to president to heal that wound. And let's not even talk about the Native American wound. What happened in, North Dakota? Was it North Dakota? That was the beginning of that. And so we are evolving, but that's what it's going to take in America. And this new moon shows us that. Now, I was going to talk about the lunar eclipse as well, but I have talked for so long that I think this is a little too long to include the lunar eclipse. I will come back and talk about that. So I guess this is part 2. The lunar nodes, the lunar eclipse is going to be part 3, and then there's probably going to be a part 4, so I can round up what else is happening astrologically. I hope you enjoyed this. Like and subscribe, and I will see you again shortly. Bye.